Hi, Paul.
Howie, how are you?
Am I right that I felt like I might be offending you? I hope I wasn't.
Oh, hell no.
By saying that if you do your job right, you hardly notice it at all. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I mean, we're supposed to make things believable if it's supposed to be believable, or fantastical if it's supposed to be fantastical, and you're not supposed to really know. People don't really know what we do. I mean, you're supposed to be immersed in that world. We're there to help tell that story for the director, and hopefully we do a good job.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Very exciting.
How did you feel when you found out you won?
The nomination?
Oh, yeah.
Aha. The one winning, not yet. The nomination.
No, but I meant the BAFTA.
Oh my gosh, the BAFTA was amazing. I mean, we were in an unbelievable room. We're in Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
Fantastic space. I'm an architect by training. I was like, it's a beautiful, beautiful space. And just this pomp and circumstance that the British do very well.
But like you said,
And
you're not
we're
used.
so tense. I have to say, so tense and nervous. Our award, I thought, was going to be in the first, 4 or 5, like at the Oscars, and it was in the last 4 or 5. It just seemed endless. And the three of us were all sitting there, very, very nervous, sweaty palms, and all the rest.
So when they say you guys win, how do you feel?
We erupted with joy, and we got up, and there was a huge contingent, because there's a big Canadian contingent to this film, shot here in Toronto, and there was a lot of nominees. We had 12 nominees for the 12 nominees, or category of the nominees, and a lot more nominees than that. And so it was a huge roar. I think we had the biggest group of nominees in the building. So when anything came up with us, there was a big, big cheer, and it was we had a lot of congratulatory hugs on the way. So it took us a fair while just to get to the stage, but they honored their time, and we had a decent time to do a little bit of speaking.
I'm glad. So does this feel funny to you, like just being in here at all and accepting awards?
It's very funny. I never thought I'd have a chance to be on this kind of world stage for what we do. We're there to I love my job. We're there to do our job, and if we do it well, everyone's happy and the film goes well, but we don't really ever expect to move on beyond that.
There's so many complexities to what you do. Can you just briefly tell people listening to this right now what exactly a production designer does?
Essentially, the job of the production designer is to shape the world that the story takes place in. So we get a script, we read the script, we break it down for what might be a location, what might be a studio set, what might be a location that we have to do a big build to make it fit whatever's written on the page. Sometimes what's written on the page is obvious. Sometimes it's a bit vague, and you might be able to throw out other suggestions to say, well, this is a great space we found. Let's convert it for this scene. It'll work really well for that scene. Even though it's described as something else, we can perhaps adjust it. And then, everything you see, from the room, the furnishings, the wallpapers, the things people read, what they're eating, cars, we have to worry about the interior of cars. Basically everything in front of the camera except the off-camera lights, like the studio lights, and the costumes. That's all part and parcel of production design. And it's just not me. There's a big team. There's a set decoration team, the art department team that do all the drawings. It's like an architect's office. They do all the drafting and everything, and then once the drafting's all done, then they move on to construction and paint. And, building is one thing, but then to make it feel 100 years old is a whole other thing. So in this case, Matthew Lamrick was our key scenic. He spends, half the money is spent on building it, and another half the money is spent making it look crappy and old.
Yeah, but giving it a story,
yes, it's giving it history.
That's what I find interesting.
It's all giving it the history, And it's easy just to build something fresh and new, but it's hard to make it feel really lived in, and that's like the art. I mean, we had incredible carpenters, but I've traveled around the world, and I'm always saying that we can always find someone to be able to build it. You can never guarantee that you're going to find someone that's going to be able to understand and age it and make it have its life.
Guillermo del Toro is so. We had him in just a couple of months ago for his exhibit at the AGO at the Art Gallery of Ontario. It was fantastic. A guy who's so obsessed with aesthetics in a very interesting way. It's not about the beauty; it's about the story. In some ways, it's about the ugliness. What's it like working with Guillermo del Toro? I have to imagine it's a bit of a dream for someone like you.
Oh, it's amazing. Like I said, you start with the script. His scripts are very descriptive, so there's words in there. This movie's full of bright colors, or not bright colors, but it's definitely color centric, very color coordinated, I should say. And it's written in there. Teal is the color of the future. So one of the lines of dialogue. So that's the kind of thing that's in the script. In her apartment, he described it. He had this vision of the light flickering through the floorboards from the theater below, from the rotted ceiling and theater below. So it would basically give this idea of caustic light, this light rippling through water. There was a dream sequence where light was rippling through water at the beginning of the movie, and then when that faded away and Eliza woke up, she was still within that kind of environment because we had flickering light coming through the floorboards, and I painted everything aqua tones, and it was, you were kind of immersed in this aqua world even when you weren't really immersed. And his film is very immersive that way. His stories are very immersive. He describes things very well, and he brings to the table lots of ideas that some directors don't have as much say in, or they don't have as much passion for. And
so this is very collaborative, it sounds like.
It's very
as opposed to you stepping in and saying, okay, I'm going to design this scene. He is there with you.
Oh, absolutely. It's his favorite. In prep time, we had, I came in with 10 weeks of prep, and he would be there at the beginning every day. When he would arrive, first thing he would do is toss his coat behind, and then he'd come to our art department. And then, that's maybe at 9:30 in the day, and then at 5 o'clock he's back again going, guys, what have you done? What have you done? And we're like, oh my God, we've only just, there's a lot of pressure because he's very demanding, but because of that demanding and the passion, we all deliver, I think we do our best work, and everyone does. It's not just me. He knows the names of all the guys in my department. He says hello. He wants to come to their desks and see what's going on. And when we're later on, when the sets are being built, he's wandering around talking to the scenic artists, talking about the aging and everything. He's very, very involved, which is really lovely.
And that's okay. You're not like, come on, man. The boss is here. Leave me.
No, I mean, if he didn't have great ideas, then maybe that would be bad. But because he's got great ideas, and he's really trying to elevate the story visually. Some people are just worried about the story and about characters and the actors and I'm talking about directors here.
Yeah, of course.
And then some directors, like Guillermo, have a much more rounded vision about everything. And his first passion is monsters. I mean, he's probably spent, other than the monsters department, he would be in the art department the most. But you could see the passion for his monsters. I mean, he was developing the design of those for about 3 years before we even made the movie. And even when we were shooting, or just about shooting, like the last week, they were still changing the paint color right up until the last minute. He himself was hand painting the creature.
Did you say you had a background in architecture?
Oh, yes. I was at Carleton Architecture University in Ottawa.
So I never thought about that. I figured the path for an architect was just to be an architect and either teach architecture or be an architect. I had never thought that it could lead you to work like this in the film industry.
There's a bunch of us. A film designer is kind of like fake architect. We're building fake worlds. Fake architecture doesn't have to last very long. We have to worry about structure and safety, but other than that, we don't have to worry about keeping the water out necessarily or keeping the heat in. It's all really just a facade. But the training one learns as an architect, you learn about space and just looking at the world, really. That's easily translatable. And I have always had a lot of people from not just Carleton, but other architects or architectural universities around, and a lot of interior designers and whatnot, and even industrial designers. It's all those kind of, and graphic designers too, all those kind of design worlds all kind of blend together, and they're all very, very useful in the film business. I
love that line you just said, that production design is like fake architecture.
It is. It's just fake. We build fake worlds, really. A movie's like a fake story, really. And so we're building the fake worlds to go with it.
I love that. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Q on CBC Radio 1 and Public Radio International. My guest is Paul Austerberry, the production designer who's built Guillermo del Toro's fantastical dream world in the heart of Toronto for The Shape of Water. He's up for an Oscar this weekend for that work. I didn't know. I watched the film, I guess it was about a month ago. I live in Toronto. I've lived in Toronto for the past 6 or 7 years. I had no idea that this was in Toronto.
Well, that's good. It's supposed to be Baltimore, so if you figured out it was Toronto, we'd be in trouble.
We'd be in trouble, but it's, from what I'm reading, it's pretty Toronto. You guys use Massey Hall?
Yeah, Massey Hall. Guillermo had, I don't know if people know, but Guillermo lives here a lot of his time. His kids go to school here. And he had, we were working on another film prior to this, and he had written in the script this description, and he said, but he told me, well, it's Massey Hall. It's supposed to be a theater with a theater marquee, but he really liked the staircases. We liked the sort of late Victorian building that it was, but he really liked the exterior staircases, and he wanted our main character to come live above there and come down those staircases.
Like the fire escape?
The fire escapes, sorry,
okay.
The exterior staircases, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was no marquee, so we had to get permission from the city and from Massey Hall to, it's a historic building. We had to build a fake marquee, again, fake architecture, fake worlds, and then we superimposed it over top of the Massey Hall sign and built a ticket booth below. And then Mr. X, which is also a Canadian company, a digital visual effects company, they added the upper part of the marquee, the upper signage.
Right.
We had a day and a half we pre-built it, pre-aged it, pre-wired it for all the lights. We brought it in with a day and a half. We shot all night long, and then we had half a day to get rid of it. It was a real tight schedule. So, but yeah, so there you go. Massey Hall, that was a classic one. We shot in the Elgin for the interior of that. We shot outside City Hall and inside City Hall in Hamilton for a Mad Men kind of 50s office, because it's a beautiful, beautiful piece of architecture, that one.
And the lake view, like
we shot at the lake
view at
yep.
at Dundas and Ossington?
Dundas and Ossington. We shot. They digitally changed the street a lot, and then we panned across to our building, and we did the interior mostly. Mr. X, again, visual effects, did a sign on the outside and did a really beautiful job painting a 60s street for us. That diner's been in a lot of movies, but it's a lovely space, and we changed it quite heavily for our purposes.
Yeah.
And then we shot at University of Toronto. The Andrews building, which is in the Scarborough campus, became the facade and entrance for our underworld lab, our OCAM facility, our big government facility. And so the architecture, the brutalist architecture there was chosen because it was like oppressive and, there was a lot of institutional architecture from the 50s, 60s, 70s, which were based on that brutalist style. So we chose that because when we went inside, we wanted to oppose what we had with this Victorian architecture for our apartment. We want to contrast that with this sort of harsh lines, harsh material, concrete material space. So we used that as the exterior. That informed our interior sets, and we built a lot of sets inside that had that language. And again, the scenic artists had to match the sort of concrete look of that building for our studio sets.
What was the greatest challenge you had in making this film in Toronto?
You know, it was difficult finding a Cadillac dealership that I liked, but that's a minor one. The biggest challenge was dealing with the water for the bathroom. We had this little...
Set the scene for everybody if they haven't seen the film.
Ah, yes. We have a beautiful, really decrepit, rundown apartment that's been shaped by water. Literally, there's water. It had a fire at one time. Guillermo and I decided there was water leaks, water damage. The floor had been stripped off, and there's a tiled bathroom that's still in there. There's a scene where our heroine has
played by Sally Hawkins.
Played by Sally Hawkins has an affair with a fishman, or the asset as it's called. Played by Doug Jones in an incredible suit.
Yeah, we had Doug on not that long ago.
Oh, you did?
He
okay.
was great. Yeah,
and we had to build this little bathroom, but it had to accommodate their little love scene. There was a key frame that a concept illustrator named Guy Davis drew with Guillermo before I started, of an embrace of the two of them together in this flooded bathroom. I mean, literally a flooded, right to the ceiling bathroom. And it was a very small bathroom. So we basically maintained that look from that illustration, and we designed it to suit that. We had a bathtub. You know, bathtubs from the 20s were only 5 feet long, and they were really shallow and not that deep or wide, I should say.
Yeah, because back then most people were using like the big steel or the little steel pans.
That's right.
Yeah,
they were quite small, so we had to sort of bisect that lengthwise, bisect that widthwise, and vertically as well. And we welded in. We had a metal body guy weld in the steel, and then we repainted it to look like a bigger tub because we had to have them embracing and in this tub. But
embracing is a nice word, by the way. It's very nice of you.
I'm leaving it for the radio.
Sure, thank you.
Anyway, and then later on, she decides to plug the bathroom, the plug up underneath the door, and turn all the taps on the sink and on the bathtub, and it fills right up, and literally
flood the entire room.
The entire room to sort of 7 foot, 8 foot deep, and that's a beautiful thing out of imagination like Guillermo's. But we obviously any kind of set we built would not be able to contain that water, so we had to build that set to use in the larger room first, and then we had to take it apart and submerge it in a smaller tank separately afterwards once we were inside that room. And I had to build it. I was terrified because, when you shoot underwater, any little contaminants will cloud the water quite quickly, like dirt, rusty nail will really make the water really cloudy, and you can't shoot more than a few hours. So I was terrified that, we had Sally Hawkins, it was her last day. We had to save this for the last day. She was leaving that night to fly overnight to go back to work, or to start work on Paddington 2 in London. We had no choice but to shoot it that day. We had 6 hours, and I didn't want my set to be or a poor job in my case to ruin that shoot. So we're very careful with making everything out of metal, not wood, and not using any steel nails and or screws. It was all aluminum, and it was Bondo instead of plaster, so it wouldn't fall apart in the water, and the paint was all epoxy. It was quite a trick, and Matthew had to test everything over the weekend every time with different finishes and aging to make sure it wouldn't fall off. So we were very stressful just to get. It was a very tiny set, but there was pressure on us to make sure we didn't ruin the scene. Put it that way.
Man, oh man! And so when you got it, must have felt great.
It was fun. It was the last day of shooting too, and we all celebrated. So it was a good thing.
Okay, so you're about to head to LA. That's great. I love that story. You're about to head to LA for the Oscars.
Yes, indeed.
How do you prepare for something like this? How are you feeling?
I just don't know how you prepare for that. I mean, the BAFTAs were incredible. I think it's going to be. I imagine it's pretty much more of the same in a more modern environment rather than that old the beautiful old architecture will be more modern LA architecture, and it's a bigger stage, I think. Obviously, a little more prestige, but the same kind of pressure and nervousness. We'll all be there with sweaty palms and hoping for the best, put it that way. But we're quite excited. There's a big gang of they're having a big party at the Palais Royal next on Sunday with all the cast and crew, local cast and crew. They're all going to be there with lots of screens and they'll be cheering for us. So hopefully we'll be able to deliver some goods for them.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to be cheering for you here at Q, and after this interview, I think a lot of Canadians are going to be cheering for you as well.
All right, let's hope so.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.